Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about building success to achieve financial freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a thinker, but here we are going to be thinking about it with Angela so that we can continue on thinking about our success and the financial freedom that, let's be honest, we all want. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Angela, for coming on my show and sharing your time and perspective with me. Let's go ahead and dive right in. When you hear the words financial freedom, what does that make you think about?
Great question. And I am happy to be here. Thank you for having me here today. And when I think about financial freedom, what that really means to me is having the ability to choose to live life on your terms. And that could be anything. It could be working until you're 65 if your career makes you happy. It could be retiring early and living life on a beach. It could be spending more time with loved ones or traveling the world. What ultimately matters is that you get to choose how you spend your time. That to me is what true financial freedom is.
Absolutely. It's just that being conscious about what you're going to do and feel in that joy. Oh my goodness. Some people just are just automatically reacting, your schedule and doing things, but we're not actually thinking about what they're doing. And how do you love what they do? You know what I mean? So when did it become real for you when you realized, you know what, Angela, I need to do something about this?
Good question. Well, to be honest, it started with pain first. And let me explain what I mean. So I had this moment of awareness of, I can't believe I'm doing this. So let me back up just a little bit. When I was in school, I acquired a lot of student debt. I went to private schools, which, not too surprising, were very, very expensive. And as a result, I acquired a large amount of student debt. And by the time my husband and I had gotten together and we started really taking an honest look at our debt, he and I both went to grad school. So we acquired a good share of debt on top of going to private schools.
Yeah.
And by the time we were married and together, combined, we had over $100,000 of student debt. And I remember one year going into our accountant's office, I had this lovely piece of paper that told me how much interest I had paid that year for my student debt. And when I looked at that piece of paper, it was something, and it's been years now, so I'm trying to remember exactly, but it was something attuned to $3,000. And I remember thinking at the time, I could have paid for a cruise vacation for myself with the money that I just spent in that one year on just my student interest. And that didn't account for what I had paid towards my principal, none of it. And it was this moment of, I can't keep doing this. So it was painful when I realized that I was wasting this money. And one way of thinking about it, I was throwing it out the window every year. And that was a moment to me that I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I would much rather pay for that cruise vacation than pay for this interest. So I decided that I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was going to find a way to pay it off as quickly as I possibly could. And it
Yeah.
took time, it took effort. But yes, from that day on forward, I did commit to a plan that did work out very successfully.
Awesome, awesome. So I guess what does building success necessarily mean to you then? We got your understanding of financial freedom. We got your understanding of why you dived into this for your life and your well-being, and let's be honest, your sanity. But what does it mean or what does it make you think when you think about building success?
Yeah, great question. So building success can really look for, or it can really look like a lot of different things for different people. But I like to take a really simple perspective to it. And what I mean by that is that financial freedom itself is possible absolutely by other means. You can start a great business, you can inherit a fortune, things like that, and you can achieve it faster. That's also not very realistic for most people. But what is realistic for a lot of people is to build a successful career. And
Yeah.
so to me, the an easier path to financial freedom, a more realistic path to financial freedom is to build a path to success for your career. And that is what I like to talk about with fire your career. You can follow a traditional successful route, build up your career, get promotions, start doing different things, increase your income, and do it in a very natural way as you continue to just make small increments, small incremental improvements throughout your career. And in doing that, you can really start to see some large gains in your income if you do this consistently. And you can get to a point where you increase your income so much that allows you to achieve financial freedom. It does require discipline. So not only are you going to build up your career and be successful doing that, but you're also going to maintain a budget and live below your means, which, yes, does require discipline. A lot of us like to live at our means. It's a habit. A lot of our friends and our family members do it. But to achieve financial freedom and do it through your career, you have to be diligent and thoughtful about living below your means.
Yeah, most definitely. You have to have real intention when it comes to your money and your finances. It sounds like, because let's be honest, if your real end goal is to go to that cruise or to buy that house or to buy that land or to put that down payment on a business, you know what I mean? Then you will have to have that self-discipline. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
that frame of mind to know that this temporary sacrifice for today in the long run will be beneficial because I will be eating my rewards later on, and I don't think many people remember realize how beneficial it is to practice self-discipline and to implement that in your life because to live in the moment, yeah, it's fun, but it's not always realistic, you know what I mean? And to
Right.
gain that financial freedom that we all want, could it be retirement or could it be just having that, that entrepreneur life where you can do as many businesses or do tap into as many things as you like, just to have that financial freedom as well, or just having that, for every person is really different. But I think just knowing that if you want something, and you really wanna achieve it, you kinda have to have that self-discipline to even make it possible. Sure. In your opinion,
Agreed.
what are the other struggles that you see people face when it comes to this concept?
Yeah, so it is a hard concept to grasp initially. And I want to make one point too that yes, it requires discipline and it at times does require sacrifice to live below your means. That does not mean that you have to, for the rest of eternity, eat rice and beans. It doesn't mean that you're foregoing Starbucks or whatever guilty pleasure you have, but it does mean being mindful about what choices you're making. So just
Yeah,
a very simple example. Simple, and I like simple examples. I think they help make a point.
they
If
do.
you, for instance, are eating out 5 days a week, maybe you cut that back to 2 days a week and you eat three more meals at home. And that gives you an extra, let's just pick a random flat number, an extra $50 to put towards your debt or towards investment or whatever else. Now you still get to eat out. You're not stopping that entirely, but you're being more thoughtful about, hey, I don't think I'm going to do that for every single meal. And I still do this. Although my husband and I have gotten to a point of achieving a lot of flexibility with where we're at with financial freedom, we practice this
Mhm.
exact same thing, even though we have more flexibility. So what we do is we say, okay, we're going to commit to this because that means that we can put that extra $50 into that investment or that debt or whatever it is, or even something bigger and more fun like an extra cruise, whatever that might be. So
Yeah.
what matters is to be really intentional about it. And it requires quite a bit of discipline. The other thing too is that when you're in a state of survival, it can be hard to even fathom that that's a possibility. And I get that that is a reality for some people, and it is hard to get out of that place where you feel like you're just constantly living at your paycheck, and you can't do much better. And I'll admit that I was there at one point when I graduated with my undergraduate degree. I couldn't even make the minimum payment for my student loan. So I had to call and request a graduated repayment plan. And it felt really painful. I felt really ashamed of myself. I thought, if I can't even pay off the student debt that I agreed to commit to pay off when I got into my career, then what does that even mean for me? So you have to be honest about your situation. And sometimes you do have to make those sacrifices and do certain things you don't want to. I didn't want to go into a graduated repayment plan, but I had to because I couldn't afford my month to month either. But I started from there and I got to where I am today by being really disciplined and really thoughtful and putting a budget together. It wasn't always a fun process. There were fun moments of it, but it sure is a lot more fun to be where I'm at today versus where I was then. So it's at times it just requires just do a little bit better than you're doing right now. If it means that you're making one small change and you're able to save even just $5 more, that $5 can go into your debt and it has a snowball and compounding effect that can really impact where you're at later down the road. And you just have to visualize what that possibility is, even as hard as it might be at times.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that concept because I understand when you said that people live in survival because I had to at some point in my life and I've been for a very long time and I know many of my listeners out there they can also have that relatable understanding as well. I mean, especially now in this day and age, I think we're all kind of surviving at this point or just trying to survive. And one thing that I learned is just even if you do those small little sacrifices, like not going out to Starbucks, you know what I mean? Those 3, 5, $7, that adds up eventually. And what I started doing is that when I don't do those little things that eat up on my account, as my account goes, when right before I get paid again, I roll that money over to my savings. And then it's like, oh, look at that. Now I have more money in my savings. And then before I knew it, by the end of the year, I had like $1,500. And I was just like, oh, well then. Now I can pay this off, or now I can do this. You know what I mean? So it's like those little like 25 or just $3, 2 cents. I mean, you know what I
Right.
mean? Those little things add
Yep.
up, you know what I mean, in the long run because we have short-term goals, but in reality, we have long-term goals because the goal is to get old. The goal is to continue to live life and to enjoy life in the best way that we can, but we also gotta be realistic, you know what I mean? Be realistic. Like you don't need to buy a $1,000 purse when you can buy a thrift store purse. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
yeah, you could get a whole new outfit for this event, but you don't need to buy $100 outfit when you could buy a $30 outfit. You know what I mean? It depends on your frame of mind and knowing where you can make those compromises. And I think that's the heavy word is compromises. You know what I mean? Because when
Right.
people don't want to think about sacrifices because that hits heavy in the heart, they're like, okay, well, I'll compromise. And that makes it a little bit softer. But like your mind, what does compromise make you think about?
Yeah. So to me, compromise is just agreeing to make certain sacrifices. So certain things that you're willing to give up that are less important to you, while also keeping the things that really, really matter to you. So for instance, I'm going to just give an example of something. So if I am trying to save for this really nice vacation, yet I like to eat out, we'll go back to the eating out example again
Yeah.
of 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But I am at my month to month limit. I am just barely making ends meet. Yet this trip is really, really important to me for whatever reason. If you make a compromise then and say, okay, this trip is important enough to me that I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to move from 5 days of eating out to two. That to me is a compromise. Now the trade off means that yeah, you can't eat out as often, but you're still eating out occasionally. But you're also able to fuel your fund towards this bigger term goal you have, which is to afford this trip. Now I realize it's a very simplistic example, but apply whatever is applicable to you in those circumstances. If it's not eating out, maybe it's that purse that you want to buy, or
Yeah.
it's, this clothing budget you have on a monthly basis, whatever it is that makes sense for your situation. A compromise is simply being able to sacrifice a little bit of today in favor of tomorrow, but finding balance in that. Again, you probably don't want to get to the point where you're eating rice and beans. You can, and you'll be able to fuel your future goals much faster. That is true.
Yeah.
But do you want to sacrifice that much of your today or your tomorrow in order to fuel that much of your further out tomorrow? Maybe. And for some
Yeah.
people, it does make sense. I follow the fire community very closely, and I know of examples of people that have done that. I am not one of the people that could do that. There are people out there, and I applaud them for making those kinds of sacrifices. I cannot go to that scale. That is something, or I cannot go to that extreme. That is a compromise that I am unwilling to make. So, what I think is most important is you understand what compromise you are willing to make. What is something that you're willing to
Yeah.
trade off in favor of your tomorrow, your further tomorrow,
Yeah.
and where can you find that balance that makes the most sense for you?
Yeah, I think that's very valid is understanding the balance that makes sense to you because people don't realize that it is gonna look different. You know, if you somebody may interpret eating rice and beans as like hitting rock bottom and start becoming traumatized and you know what I mean, and they won't ever eat rice and beans ever again. You know what I mean, and PTSD if somebody ever serves them rice and beans. You know what I mean? Like I've
Yep.
had conversations with people like that. You know what I mean? Like I know somebody who won't eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because that for them is rock bottom. You know what I mean? And it's like it flashbacks and I know it sounds funny, but it's real situation. So I
It's
know this
true.
is real. So it's like you have to find that balance within yourself and know where your limitations are, know where your boundaries are, and know like where you're gonna limit it off on because everyone's different. You know, it's kind of like working out. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to start working out or you want to develop a better workout relationship with yourself, you know what I mean? Or you want to start walking more or gain a goal of walking 5 miles. Well, then, and you have no walking experience, but what are you going to do? You're going to at least walk 5 minutes in a day. 5 minutes in a day is going to lead you a lot closer to that 5 miles
Right.
than not doing anything. And that's a compromise and that's a sacrifice. And that's something that you can do and that's realistic. You know what I mean? So I love your examples. And I think that's very, very valid for us to really think about and marinate when it comes to building our success and owning up to that financial freedom and knowing what feels right within ourselves, you know, because it's always going to look different. You know, there's no really black and white copyright manual for for one person fits all. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. You know what I
Definitely.
mean? Sadly to
Yep.
say, there's no manual that works like that for our lives,
If
you know.
only.
You know, if only it'll be that easy. Goodness, and I think life would be a lot easier then. But that's the beauty of life is that it has complications to keep us on our toes, right?
That's true. Yep, that's true.
So I guess time is catching up to us. What can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Yeah. So to keep on thinking, something else I like to point out is that don't underestimate the importance and the value of incremental improvements. And I think that's something we touched on a little bit. To do your 5 mile run, you might start with a 5 minute walk. Maybe
Mhm.
the next day it's a 10-minute walk. Maybe you start to run the third day, a little
Yeah.
portion of that, and you might be surprised how quickly that ramps up. And funny example, that's exactly how I got into running. I used to hate running. I did. True story. I hated running. But I started really small and I just started doing a little bit more every day.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed what little improvements you make. They can make such a big difference. The last thing I'll leave the audience with is if you want to achieve financial freedom, it is very achievable. I know it feels like a lofty, far off goal, but
Yeah.
use these incremental improvements to get there, and you can do amazing things. And if anyone wants more advice on the small ways you can make improvements in your life, feel free to check out my website at Fire Your Career. And I try to provide very small snippets of information to help you achieve success and get to financial freedom.
See, there you go. I like that. I like that a lot. And it's funny that you said that that's what how you got into running because I'm currently in my walking stage where that's
Nice.
what I'm doing and my goal is to do an hour of walking, but I was able to break up my walking into 15 increments. So I'm at 45 minutes. So I got to 3. So I'm slowly getting there, you know what I
That's
mean? But I feel
great.
but I feel good, you know what I mean? It feels good to know that I'm almost there. So I absolutely agree. See, takes time, but it's achievable. Oh my
It
goodness,
is.
great. And ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to know more about Angela, because how could you not with this conversation, right? Go check her out. I have her photo on my website along with her website. Just click right there, right under hers, and it'll get you access to all her content so that you can continue on thinking. So with that being said, bye.